NMLS number 65084, equal housing lender. Woo!
As an adult, don't we all miss spring break? Nothing like taking a week off from all your responsibilities. Well, here's the next best thing for adults, a spring break from house payments. SaveWithConrad.com can help you get rid of all your credit card debt, just like that. We're routinely helping our listeners save $5, $6, $7, even $800 a month. And you don't need perfect credit or money out of your pocket to do this, but check this out, no house payments for 2 months. At SaveWithConrad.com. It's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Foley Is Pod. And of course, we couldn't do it without the Hall of Famer, the hardcore legend himself, Mr. Mick Foley. Mick, how are you, man?
Doing pretty good. Ready for a good and unusual episode here.
It's going to be fun today. We're excited because, as everyone is listening to this, it's WrestleMania.
Exciting.
Tonight, of course, is a really huge SmackDown live on Fox, the go-home episode before one of the biggest WrestleManias of all time. Mm-hmm. But right after that is the Hall of Fame. And you teased us a few weeks ago that you never know who might show up at those.
You never know who might show up and who's been fitted recently for a tuxedo.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So, hypothetically, we know a damn handsome man who's going to be in a tuxedo tonight?
Exactly.
Okay.
Maybe being outshone by the inductee that I will be inducting.
Hypothetically.
I don't see, in the interest of full disclosure, we're recording this actually
a
couple weeks out. We do not know whether I will be announced.
Right.
But I will be there.
Well, I'm going to be watching. I love the Hall of Fame. It's one of my favorite events every year because you get to hear from folks that you wouldn't normally hear from, and I just think it's cool to sort of, show those respects for those who sort of paved the way. And, of course, we know at this point Rey Mysterio and a whole bunch of others have been announced, Great Muta. And it's going to be a star-studded affair for sure. And, of course, tomorrow night, night one of WrestleMania. You excited? You anxious? What do you think?
I am excited. The thing I'm anxious about is I don't know whether or not I will be there for sure.
Right.
Our dear friend Mickey James, for whom I will be hosting WrestleMania, has kindly offered me a few seats in a suite.
Wow.
So I may be in attendance. I did watch my suite when the event was in San Jose, when it was still a one-day event, and I had a great time.
Yes.
Had a great time. The only thing that was hurting the event for me was that the suite next to us was being unruly, really overplaying the whole suite mates thing, and making life a little tough for me. And fortunately, security came up, and they did a little bit of a sweep, and they found one of the suite guys with one of the suite ladies. They were married, but not to each other.
Oh, goodness gracious.
And when, in short order, there was no one in that suite. So the suite was cleared out. We had a great time. And I am looking forward to a really great Mania. I've gone on record as saying I really like the 2-day event as opposed to the 1-day. Reason, should I rehash the reason being?
Sure.
Reason being, by the time the average fan gets to WrestleMania,
right,
they've been to at least 5 events,
right,
some of them 10 events, and they're almost wrestled out, which makes it almost impossible to have that magic moment in the main event of WrestleMania because the fans are burnt.
Yes.
And now, instead of one 7-hour show, I think you get 2 3.5-hour shows.
Much better.
Much better. And it's just made it, I think just as must-see. Obviously good for everyone, good for the city, good for the venue, good for WWE, good for the fans. And you have that bona fide chance to have that magic WrestleMania moment in the main event.
Well, the main event is what I'm excited to talk about. Talking about that San Jose WrestleMania. I actually was at that one too, and interestingly enough, also in a suite. But somehow I wound up in the same suite with Roman's family.
Really?
And his dad didn't seem thrilled with the finish of that show, which, as you recall, started off with Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. Seth Rollins did a pretty iconic cash-in, and the winner of Brock Lesnar Roman Reigns was Seth Rollins, and I don't think everybody in my suite was excited for that or expected that. So it was interesting. But this is going to be maybe the most interesting of all. We talked just last week about, hey, do you think this Cody chasing for the world title is a longer story? And I'm not sure if you had a chance to see Raw last night as we're recording, but boy, it does feel like it might be a Lex Luger type moment if he doesn't win it now.
Doesn't win it.
Like if the babyface comes out and all but guarantees he's winning the thing, he kind of has to win the thing, doesn't he?
It's so, I think it's pivotal.
Yeah.
Again, we're quoting Jim Cornette. Going back, we're talking, for those, should we put the Lex Luger comment in context?
Yes.
This was James E. Cornette prior to the SummerSlam, where Lex had been heavily and very well built.
The Lex Express.
The Lex Express.
It slammed Yokozuna on the 4th of July. Quite a build.
On the USS Intrepid. And it was a really good build, and Cornette did an interview, I think it was a Torch interview, where he goes, well, you put the guy in a position where if he doesn't win the title, he looks like a plate full of piss.
Flatter than a plate full of piss.
And I wouldn't go so far as to say that's the way Lex came out of it, but he never regained that momentum.
Yes.
And it's so valuable. You know, in so many ways, succeeding WWE is an exercise in constantly keeping your head above water. But in some ways, it's not enough just to survive. There's a moment in time from which you might never come back from if they don't do the right thing. Whereas I don't think wins and losses are as important as some people do. There is a time for a win, and I think it's this Mania for Cody.
Man, I love what you just said there. It just got all over me. Is that something you've said before, that success in WWE a lot of times is just keeping your head above water?
It is. It's constantly bobbing, evolving, as long as we're going with the ocean motif.
Sure.
You don't want to be swept away by the tides of change. And I think that's one of the things you saw when guys depended on the catchphrases too long. It was like, dude, you've got, and I said last week, the secret is to tweak things before the audience realizes it needs a tweaking. And then, all right, we're going to overhaul this character completely, and maybe even make him a different character because that character's dead.
Right.
So it is it's really difficult work while also understanding it's a marathon, not a sprint. So if you're in a marriage with one of the other wrestlers, that isn't ideal, it's okay. You still make the best out of it.
Yes.
And then you go on to a marriage that might be more meaningful. So I don't think there's anything wrong with moving up and down the card as long as you make the most of every marriage. So that my goal was always for the guy that I was wrestling to be better off after I keep saying marriage. That's a given in wrestling,
Yeah.
The angle and the series of matches are over. But no matter how much water you're treading and keeping your head above water, once in a while you need that rescue from WWE.
Well, listen, I can't wait to see it. Originally, I was planning to be there the whole weekend, and then I thought, well, I think I can miss this one. I'm going to enjoy it from home. And I got a little pressure from a friend. I'm going to try to be there.
You are.
I hope that this is the night for Cody, and I want to be able to say that I was there. I'm pulling for him. I'm sure Roman's a great guy, but I've been pals with Cody for a while, and this is going to be the biggest moment in his career. I mean, just main eventing a WrestleMania is pretty rare air. I mean, even Ric Flair has come out and said, I never went on last at WrestleMania, and certainly Dusty never did, and it's a big opportunity for Cody to be there. I can't wait to see if he pulls it off. By the way, our topic today is a handful of iconic matches with Vader that we're going to be talking about, but before we do, I figure we should spend a little time on WrestleMania. So let's quickly run through some of the other matches, and you sort of spilled the beans. We are taping this a little bit in advance, so we might get one or two wrong here, maybe miss something, but we're going to get the general gist of it. Night one, we know for sure. We're seeing Seth freaking Rollins take on Logan Paul. Logan Paul has exceeded all expectations. He spent a lot of time with Shawn Michaels, according to the legend, getting ready for his match over in Saudi Arabia with Roman Reigns. I thought he exceeded all expectations. Clearly a natural athlete, clearly a big-time social media superstar, and he understands his role in this. And I just think him and Seth Rollins have an opportunity to damn steal the show on night one.
We do. I mean, we're all adults here, so we know that there's going to be some thought that goes into that match.
Sure.
It is a great quality to be able to go out there and wing it and call it in the ring, but it's also a great quality to be able to do the Catholic Mass in Latin, but it doesn't really mean as much anymore.
Yes.
It's kind of a lost art. And I've said this about, when I was in my Santa memoir, I was kind of comparing the real bearded Santas and theatrical Santas and saying in the end, it doesn't matter how you get to the finish line.
Yes.
It's getting there. And I use as an example, The Rock and Steve Austin threw two of the best punches, I think, in the business. I said to Hunter one day, I can't remember what I was watching on TV, but we're at the monitor. I said, Hunter, you've worked with both Steve and Rock. And he goes, yeah. I said, what's the main difference between them? He said, Steve's punches hurt like hell and Rock's don't hurt at all. And I said, that's exactly what I was thinking. That was there were other differences, obviously. That was the main difference. But they both got got
great.
there. They both looked great. They both got you over the finish line in great fashion. And so it is, in the end, giving the fans the best match they can have.
Yes.
And whether some work goes into that or not, I don't really care.
Right.
And none of us really should.
Right.
I think Seth is such a master. The Architect was a great name for him. Not as great as Seth freaking Rollins. And this character of his is just...
How about the crowd responding to the music the way they did?
It's just incredible.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. I love the character. I honestly think that there's a very good, positive, a little bit of competition in that family. And I think, I believe, I haven't asked Becky about this, but we are going to have a talk. Maybe I'll throw it out there. It's like, I think they push each other.
I think that's a great trait,
to be
great
better,
quality.
Great quality, and it could be the athleticism of both guys is off the chart. Leadership of Rollins, the ability to work on some stuff. I think it could be an excellent match, potential show stealer.
If you were in that match, if you were in the Seth Rollins spot, would it matter to you who won or lost? A lot of people say, I don't want to lose to this outside celebrity. Others say, who cares? It's a big spot. It's a big match.
Look, if when they talk about wins and losses, and you still have some of the old school guys who will tell you to this day, you can't lose on TV.
Right.
Guess what? I saw Sami Zayn lose to Johnny Knoxville one Mania ago, and that loss didn't hurt him. I may have hurt him if he hadn't backed it up with phenomenal stuff.
Yes.
So
he didn't let it define him.
Right. So if Sammy can lose to Johnny Knoxville, there you go.
Other matches that we should discuss. Charlotte Flair taking on Rhea Ripley. I know you and I are both Rhea Ripley fans, and this is essentially a WrestleMania rematch, but kind of a weird one because this was the WrestleMania that happened during the COVID era with no fans. So now to have an opportunity to, as the kids say, run it back with a huge crowd, this should be really fun, but I don't know that I could call it. I mean, certainly I'm pulling for Charlotte Flair. I'm a homer, but at the same time, I could argue it's Rhea's time. What say you?
I think Rhea has to win it. I've been a big Rhea proponent ever since my family saw her on Day One Royal Rumble, and my wife, who's been around the business a long time, was like, "Who is that?" Just she stood out, star quality. And then I got in my little mini Twitter war with Rhea a few years ago. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I said, I think Rhea Ripley is going to be a big star in WWE, and I get back a response says no SHIT, and my next tweet said, "Am I in a Twitter war with Rhea Ripley?" And we went back and forth a little bit with the understanding that it was all in good fun.
Yeah, tongue in cheek.
Yeah, it was all in good fun. I thought she needed to win
the COVID Mania.
The COVID Mania, because she had been pushed as the face of NXT.
That's right.
She just needed that win a lot more than Charlotte did.
At this point, Charlotte doesn't need any wins. She's a made woman.
Right.
But this could be a career-defining moment for Rhea. So
yeah. The Judgment Day is still going to be hot. It's going to be
no matter
great.
what.
But I think the time feels right for a win.
Totally agree. Bianca Belair will be defending her title against Asuka. Obviously, we always know that the phrase, the greatest athlete in WWE, I mean, Bianca is that personified. But Asuka, man, talk about one of the more underrated lady performers. She's been in there at WrestleMania moments with Charlotte Flair for the title in New Orleans a few years ago, and she's the challenger here. What do you expect here? What do you see? If you had to call it.
I don't know. I haven't seen much in the way of build. That's so. I was watching, as I say, last night, so I'm placing myself a couple weeks out. The in-ring interaction was a little awkward.
Absolutely, it was.
It was a little awkward. Just the laughing. I don't know. I think I'm hoping as we say this, they've
got time to correct.
They've got time to do something special, and we just hope. I have not personally seen a match between the two of them, so I hope the chemistry is there. It's not like it doesn't seem to be a match made in heaven.
Right.
Asuka, because the language barrier doesn't have the opportunity to build something like Becky did.
Right.
I mean, the Becky Lynch Bianca thing was a work of art.
Yes.
Becky going all the way back to knowing she was going to get heat for winning so quickly, coming back, choosing to become a heel when she could have been red hot as a babyface, willingly missing out on the merch money and having a plan, a long-term plan, executing it, pulling off a really good match with the shoulder injury early on. That was just incredible, and Bianca's been a really good champion. I hope they have a great match. Up until now, the build hasn't been great.
I'm not going to compare it to the Austin turn at WrestleMania 17, but a lot of fans online feel like WWE sort of fumbled with Becky, not just bringing her back as this white-hot babyface at SummerSlam. Did you think that was a mistake?
No, I think, the old saying, the proof is in the pudding. She's been great TV.
Yes, ever since.
By turning heel, she forced herself away from relying on just the catchphrases and the goodwill. Because I think otherwise you would have seen that man character getting stale. And instead, I haven't watched as much wrestling as I used to. This is the least wrestling that I've ever watched. I still love it. It's just, man, 40 some odd years.
Your travel's been crazy,
right?
Too.
Been crazy too.
Becky being a mistake. Was it a mistake?
Yeah. I don't even know how Becky turned. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I never saw. Was there a babyface turn, or was it just one of those things like The Rock, where people, or Seth Rollins,
they want to cheer her.
They want to cheer her, and over time you become that.
It's inevitable.
Yeah, it's inevitable.
I'm going to go with Bianca retaining. Do you want to make a pick?
I believe that would be the case too.
We talked a lot about her so far today. Let's talk about Becky Lynch. She, of course, is a tag team champion with Lita, but she's in a six-man here. Talk about a dream match. As far as I know, Lita is on Becky's Mount Rushmore, along with some other present company. And the idea that she gets to team with Lita and Trish Stratus, this should be fun as they take on Damage Control. You got to think we want that warm, fuzzy feeling, Trish, Lita, and Becky standing tall at the end of the night. That's what my pick would be. What say you?
I hope so, too. I think it'd be a fun match. I was one of the nice things about doing this treasure show is the amount of time I've been able to spend with Booker as well, but with Lita, because you don't see someone for years at a time, and then you sit down, you remember all these great times you had, and when Lita, I'm not laughing, when Lita broke her neck, I wrote her the handwritten letter is still the best way.
Absolutely.
To get a handwritten letter for somebody. And so Lita wrote back to me, and thanks, Mick, it meant a lot to me. And then she just all the frustration that had been built up came out on that page, which was about 6 pages long. And so we've had a chance to revisit a great friendship. And, she was 1 year away from me in the Hall of Fame induction. Trish was in my year. Becky's such a dear friend. So I'm emotionally invested in this match. I'm hoping for a really good, fun match. It's probably not going to be the show stealer, but it's going to be a good, fun match. And I'd love to see Becky and the two legends standing
When
victorious.
I think about those big WrestleMania moments, I even think about WrestleMania 30 in New Orleans, where that show started with The Rock, Hulk Hogan, and Stone Cold in the ring. That in and of itself, without a match, was just a huge WrestleMania moment. But the idea that you get sort of the female equivalent of that with Trish, Lita, and Becky Lynch. But in an actual match, I agree with you, just to feel good. It's what WWE moment is all about. We're also going to see some violence when we see Edge and Finn Balor step in the Hell in a Cell. You know a thing or two about the Hell in a Cell. What do you expect from that one?
I did. Well, look, I know Adam a lot better than I know Finn, and he's a perfectionist, brother. He wouldn't be out there unless he thinks he can steal the show. And they have a legitimate chance.
Yes.
You know, Edge has done great things inside the cell with the Undertaker is the one that's coming to mind. And he's coming off an injury. He's going to be ready, and he's got grit. So, and Balor, he's like an artist. He really is.
Yes.
He is a true artist, and those guys, it remains to be seen how much they'll be allowed to do. But they will go to whatever length they're allowed to have the best match possible.
Well, I know they're going to be looking to have the best match possible when we've got Gunther, and as of right now for the Intercontinental Championship, it looks like it's going to be Sheamus or Drew McIntyre. Just the idea that we're seeing Gunther as the Intercontinental Champion at WrestleMania makes me excited. I'm looking forward to that.
Sheamus is just a masochist, right?
He
just loves to take, and I guess he'd be a sadomasochist because he does love to dish it out too. He loves the hard-hitting stuff, and he's got a guy in Gunther. I remember when people were worried that the change of name from Walter, because Gunther, I actually use, I think, a better German name than Walter. Man, those there's going to be some raw chests.
Oh, no matter what. Somebody's going to be hurting in the shower afterwards. Brock Lesnar and Omos. You want to talk about two big dudes. I don't think a lot of people expected this to be the match that we would be talking about, but Brock Lesnar here and what might be one of his last WWE matches against Omos. What do you expect?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't know. Brock has got that almost singular ability to make stuff real in a hurry.
Yes.
Or at least look real. I don't know. I don't know what Omos has, in the tank as far as great matches.
Yes.
And he's in territory he hasn't been in before.
Yes. Could be awesome or terrible.
Yeah, one or the other. Yeah.
There's a match that's been rumored, but as we're recording, we don't know if it'll happen. Bobby Lashley and Bray Wyatt. Lots of speculation about what may or may not be going on with Bray, but I'd love to see Lashley have another big WrestleMania moment. Bray Wyatt seems like as great of a dance partner as anybody. What say you?
As we talk, Bray did walk out of MSG. Was that the deal?
The rumor and innuendo is that he has a medical issue, and there was lots of speculation that maybe it was an injury that he had been working through, and other people said, no, that's not it, it's something else. But there's the other talk that maybe he's just frustrated with creative, and I don't know. But I know that Bobby Lashley sent a cryptic tweet out, and it just feels like, after the time that Bray has had, I was looking forward to him having a big WrestleMania moment here, with the departure, the return. I'd like to see some momentum building here for Bray, and I don't know. Do you think we'll see him there?
I hope so.
I hope so, too.
I think one of the most important things, if I was an opponent of Bray's, I would make it clear that I was going to have to go to a dark place that I'm not comfortable going in. I thought that I love John Cena. I've taken a lot of flack over the years. Now I think almost everyone agrees that this guy was a very special.
Absolutely.
So back in the day when I was pretty new to Twitter, and now I'm back on Twitter. Kind of. Grillo's handling my tweets, but we do feel like I feel like I owe it to you guys to get the word out about our show in particular, and for WWE about Most Wanted Treasures. Put me back on track here, Conrad.
Well, we were talking about how you were defending John Cena, and you're hoping that Bray Wyatt's there.
So, when I was kind of new I had 10, 20,000 followers, and I send out something. I'm sitting at the kitchen table. I'm watching Raw. Cena cuts a really good promo, and I say, I think it's about time that people start acknowledging what a great champion John Cena has been. And then Noelle, my daughter, turns to me and goes, Dad, you just got 2,000 replies. What? I know it was replies, responses. And I went, how could that possibly be? And a lot of them being negative. Of
course.
And I said, oh yeah, try finding me a bad John Cena pay-per-view match. And every person responds with the match with Ron Killings. R-Truth. I go, well, that's the exception that proves the rule. If every one of you is saying the one match, you point to one match, that proves that all the other ones were really good. But I think John Cena missed an opportunity when he worked with Bray Wyatt to go inside himself and find that darker spot. I was begging him not to come out with the gear and the salute and the shirt, and it was like, oh man, I wanted to see someone dig down deep because that's what I would have done as a character. And I haven't seen that from Bobby. I think Bray Wyatt is a character that should be changing people.
I like that.
And I don't.
Now that Cena match now, it happened in his mind, right? Didn't they do the Saturday Night's main event thing, and they did the NWO John Cena thing? I mean, that was the COVID WrestleMania where they went a little outside the...
I guess I'm thinking of the original when Bray came out hot,
at 30.
Right, yeah. So I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that type of... look,
it's a challenge.
Mr. McMahon was not big on baby faces acknowledging weaknesses.
That's right.
He wasn't big on heels showing any traits of decency.
Yeah.
And I like the gray. I like the gray area, and I like the idea of struggling to adapt to a completely different type of wrestler.
I like it. Well, the other match that, we haven't really been told is going to happen as we're recording this, but we can sort of read the tea leaves. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn versus the Usos, to me, and I'm not saying it will, but this could close night one. Like, this feels like a main event story, even if it doesn't necessarily go on last. I think as far as the emotional investment as those in the crowd, this is going to be one of the most emotionally charged matches of either night.
Yeah.
And at the end of the night, a lot of people are going to want to know, is WWE going to, quote-unquote, give us what we want, as Batista might say, or is Vince going to make a decision that we've seen him make before? Do you think the Usos leave with the belts? They just can't.
Man, look, all right, going back to the discussion we had a couple weeks ago about DX.
Yes.
And the New Age Outlaws joining, Shawn Michaels being concerned that DX was weak. I don't think it hurts the bloodline to lose all the titles, because I like the idea, just as I like the idea of Lashley doing some soul searching, I like the idea of three heels picking up the pieces, trying to put them together. And it gives also, when you're not, when you've lost the titles, now you show that sense of loss.
Yes.
You show the anger, the frustration, maybe even the sadness, and you come back stronger than ever, and you hurt people. So I'm okay. I think WWE has a great opportunity to send people home happy on both nights, and I hope they take advantage of it.
A couple last ones, then we'll move on to talking about Vader. I do want to ask about Austin Theory and John Cena. This is one that a lot of people have been looking forward to. John Cena's return to the company, and some people are even saying this could be a passing of the torch. But, boy, they got everybody talking with that promo a few weeks ago. What do you expect here? Is it Austin's time?
That was a really good promo.
Yes.
Because I think Cena spoke truths that were on the minds of some WWE fans. He is basically setting up Theory to prove himself. And what better way to prove yourself than by beating the legendary John Cena? So I think that's where they're going with it. 1 year ago, it seemed like Theory was dead in the water, and he's had a really good year. But still, I think that line that Cena said, like, they don't believe in you. Did he say you don't believe in you? Like, deep down, he didn't believe in the hype. one of the obstacles to really getting over, I think, for younger wrestlers is that a lot of really talented in-ring technicians want to be number one. But there's no heat in wanting to be the best. Like, I think there's a lot of very different, not very different variations, very similar figures all trying to be that I'm the best. And I don't find that interesting. So the cocky guy who could very well be doing his promo photos like that, I guess it's, in a way, it's a testament to Ric Flair, to Bret Hart, but to Brian Danielson was really instrumental, I think, in showing a lot of younger fans that they could succeed despite not having that look. But I think Theory's got to show me another side of himself. I do, and I think the Cena interviews have given him a chance to do that. Nothing like being issued a challenge and rising to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the last thing I want to ask about, because, boy, it's been rumored for a long time, since this is the WrestleMania in Hollywood, lots of speculation for over a year that Austin and The Rock would somehow be involved. And I'm curious, from your perspective, would you be surprised to see either or both of them show up as a surprise?
No. I mean, I'd be happy. It would be a great surprise. So I would not be surprised at that surprise, especially Rock, because it's Hollywood.
Can you imagine, hypothetically, if The Rock were to maybe I'm fantasy booking, a lot of the bloodline get involved, and it looks like they're taking advantage of Cody, and The Rock is the one who rights the wrong, and now that's WrestleMania next year?
That could be
fantastic.
That could be fantastic.
Man, my phone has been a buzz all week. Hey, man, can you help me get WrestleMania tickets? Dude, you don't need to ask me. You need the GameTime app. You see, buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. GameTime is the app that makes it fast and easy to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. And what I love best about GameTime is that they show you images of seat views. Really think about that. We've all bought tickets before and then had to hope that we were going to like our seats, but we kind of don't know until we get there. Not with GameTime. Man, this is such a great app. It makes it easy to find and buy tickets, even up until the day of the event. We're talking flash deals, last-minute ticket sales, but what I like best about it is the peace of mind I get from the GameTime app. They have a lowest price guarantee. They've got event cancellation protection. Man, they've even got job loss protection. So forget planning months in advance. GameTime has deals on the right tickets at the right price all up until the last day of the event. You can get those flash deals, by the way, on football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever. But the guarantee means you'll always get the best price. Check this out. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. 110%. You're going to get the best deal. And man, I'm telling you, eliminate that guesswork by having an image of what your seat view is going to look like. Bam. Then you just buy those tickets in a matter of seconds. 2 taps and you're all set. They send the tickets right to your phone. It doesn't get any easier. So snag the tickets without the stress with GameTime. Just download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code FOLEY, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code FOLEY for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So we'll see what happens. Here's what I know. The entire wrestling world will be watching, and we're thankful that you guys are watching. And next week, we're going to be back talking about the Hall of Fame, if you make it. And WrestleMania Night 1 and Night 2. Of course, the reason we're here today is we're going to be discussing your 2 matches that took place 35 35 years ago. Is that right?
30 years ago.
Yeah, well, goodness gracious, 93.
93, 30 years ago.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute, 25 would be 98. Yeah,
or as Dusty Rhodes would say, 30 years. 30 years.
And all this time later, a computer took our job. Because that computer is Peacock. Get your Peacock out. It's Season 2, Episode 16 of WCW Saturday Night. This is a fantastic episode. When you finish Foley Is Pod, I recommend you go check this out. Lots of great WCW action from '93. Arn Anderson's here. The Hollywood Blondes are here. Lord Steven Regal. All very good stuff. But you're just starting to take off in your babyface run here in WCW, which we started to cover earlier this year. You're firmly placed as, I guess, maybe the number 2 babyface in the company. But in that transition phase, with Bill Watts gone and now Ole Anderson firmly in place, Ric Flair is returning to the company. There's just a lot of flux in the company. Is this a challenging time to be in WCW with all these changes, or is it just business as usual for you?
It is, because Ole comes back. He's still not sold on me, but Dusty still has a hand in things. So that when I have the idea to do the angle with Vader, it's Dusty's office I go to. And I explained to him that that the one thing that was lacking in this babyface turn was the ability for fans to get behind me during the Heat segment. Because, and I know I've talked about this a little bit before, because as a heel, I'd been depicted as someone who thrived on and maybe even enjoyed pain. So you come out, get the really good response. I'd say really good responses. Everything humming along until the heel tries to get heat on me. And then it's time for people to just wait it out, because there is no sense of, this is the way I felt, no sense of urgency, because the guy's doing something that he enjoys. And I told Dusty the difference is when I wrestle Leon, people do get behind me, because Leon is, he's so big and his offense looks so impressive and very realistic, because it basically was real when you were in there with Leon. And I wanted my character to suffer an injury, and so that I could come back from something, and that we could have a different tilt to Cactus Jack as a babyface. And that's where Dusty came up with the amnesia angle. And as he's going, I know we'll take you off the road. You'll have amnesia. You won't even remember your own wife. And I was thinking, oh, this isn't good. And as soon as he said the magic words, we're going to take you off the road for 4 months and we're going to pay you. And it's when he asked me what I thought, I went, I like it.
Yes.
I like it a lot. So in order to get that angle going, we're going to have a build-up match. Mm-hmm. And I want it to be exceedingly physical. I want Leon to do a number on me. And I asked him, and doggone it, he was willing to do it.
Yeah, we're going to dig into that a little more. But I am curious, with all of these changes, do you ever feel like your spot is in jeopardy?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think I'd have to go through the where I was before that Vader. Can't remember when the Max Payne and I teaming up.
I just know that a lot of times whenever there is a change in leadership, let's do a football analogy. There's a new head coach.
Yeah.
There's a tendency for him to say, well, hey, I want my guys here, whether that's coaches, assistant coaches, or players. There's just an opportunity for change. Do you think that opportunity was going to affect you here?
Yeah, I did, because it was Ole and Ole. Yeah, I moved down the card rapidly as soon as Ole came on board, and forgive me if I'm mixing up my facts a little bit. It's been 30 years.
Yeah.
But my recollection is that I was basically opening shows or first or second matches. And I went to Dusty with an idea that, even though it, wasn't what I hoped it would be because of the Lost in Cleveland stuff, which we'll probably get to.
Sure.
But it still gave me a chance to come back with a main event program.
Yes.
And I wrote in my book that at one point I was asked what the best moment of my career was and worst moment. And I said the best moment, I'm jumping forward to the Halloween Havoc match with Leon, the culmination of the feud. But I know it's not supposed to succeed by virtue of the fact that no matter how successful it is, they've already taped weeks worth of TV
yes.
to follow. And I'm not really in the plans after that. So it's a little bit of a downer for me. But we come into the match, and the match is going hot, and I grabbed a actual camera, hit Leon with it, and then I looked around at the crowd, and they all rose, almost like a wave, but based on just that look at the audience, they all rose, and I realized, wow, I've got this crowd in the palm of my hand. The follow-up question was, what was the worst moment? And I said, realizing I would never get that high again. That's the way I felt at the time, that I've got this thing. I mean, and in that Havoc, I tried to end my own career.
Yeah.
I tried to end it by taking that big bump on the ramp,
Squash.
which I did not think I could ever come back from, because I didn't think anyone could come back from that. So I was really frustrated with the way things were going, and I wanted to come out with one last great hurrah. Luckily for me, things took a little different turn. The road of life offered me a path, and I took it to WWE. But I was seeing the Leon stuff kind of as my last hurrah.
So 2 days after Super Brawl are the Saturday night tapings, where you're going to lose to Paul Orndorff in the quarterfinals of the TV title tournament in a match that would have to be retaped a week later. Do you remember why you had to retape the match?
I do not.
You're also dealing with another babyface breaking into the company, the British Bulldog. You had worked him in a TV match very early in your career, along with Dynamite Kid, and I think you wound up with maybe a broken jaw afterwards?
A dislocated jaw, dislocated jaw, and that would become my Achilles heel for a while. That if I was hit hard in the jaw, that thing would come out of alignment, but I didn't know that was the injury. Not until Francois Petit, who was like our shiatsu master / chiropractor.
Interesting guy.
He was an interesting guy, but brother, he did some things. I mean, I remember what it was like to not be able to chew. The most well documented is from the match with the Bulldogs from 1986, because I wrote about it. But there were probably 3 or 4 other times where my jaw would get knocked out. I didn't know that's what it was. I come back from a match, I'm not sure which match, I tell Francois what the symptoms is. He does something that looks like it's out of the Three Stooges. He looks like he holds my chin and whacks his own hand. But I'll be doggone if I couldn't chew and open my mouth. Like, I was like, truly, this is a man of miracles.
Yes.
So, he was able to do that. But I did have the match with the Bulldogs. I'd had him earlier. Oh, no, I'm jumping to 96 with WWE. When Bulldog comes on, he becomes the instant number 2, partially going back to that old rule that to be the top guy, you've got to make top guy money.
There you go.
But the only way to become a top guy was really to have come from somewhere else.
Come from WWE.
Yeah.
And so he's fresh off of that run, and you had this maybe moment in history with him in '86. Do you ever share that story? Hey, remember when you...
Sure, yeah. Davey was a great guy. He really was very well liked. And this was when he was looking great. He had he'd come off the hot run with WWE. I don't know why I should know why he left WWE, but he did.
Steroids.
Was that what it was?
Yes.
He traveled he lived in England for a while, really did well on the independent scene, did well all over. Came back, instant number 2, and I was okay with that. I mean, I think by the time I did the angle with Leon, I may have been 4 or 5.
Right.
I'd have to look at that roster. I thought I delivered on the, on the opportunity, and I thought I was being pushed down quicker than I should have and further than I should have. I had no problem being number 3 to Sting and Bulldog, but I think by that point I was 5 or 6.
Well, the next day, the guy who fought hard for you to come into the company, good old JR, is going to resign after being demoted. Man, if I'm you at this point, I'm starting to get a little nervous. Like, one of my biggest advocates is out. That can't be good.
I think the idea was JR was going to sell advertising.
Yeah.
It's like, you got the best announcer in the history of business. You're going to have him sell advertising?
I think the idea is Eric felt like at times WCW felt too southern, too regional.
Yeah.
He wanted a more national feel, and for whatever reason, he didn't like the look and feel of Jim Ross and thought, he's not really happy with what we're doing anyway. We'll just put him over here, and that was all JR needed to hear, and It worked out for JR.
Worked out for good old JR.
You wrote in your book about your working with Vader. We had recently had a match in Gainesville, Georgia, and Vader's stuff looked and was so devastating that the fans had rallied behind me during the heat. I called Dusty and set up a meeting wanting to stress the point that I was just a flesh and blood man who could be and had been injured. I thought a series of matches with Vader would help the fans see me in a more sympathetic light. You also wrote, I laid out a scenario to Dusty, one that culminated in a devastating injury. The Dream thought about it for a few minutes and then got a look on his face as if he just had a major revelation. This is where he pitches the amnesia.
You'll go home. Yeah, you won't recognize your wife.
And you wrote, nobody was going to believe amnesia. This was WCW, damn it, not Days of Our Lives. I was just about to speak up when Dusty said those magic words.
We're going to take you off the road and we're going to pay you.
Let me see. I could get buried and languish in the opening matches, or I could be with my wife and son for 4 months and come back in a main event feud. The choice wasn't difficult. When he asked me what I thought, I gushed. I love it, Dream. I really love it. This is just fantastic, and we should actually now go ahead and watch the match. This was taped April 5th, 1993. So I can't believe it, but here we are on the 30-year anniversary. It would air 12 days later on April 17th, and we'll talk about what the Torch wrote about it and what you had to say about it.
Wait, what? You and Meltzer have a falling out? Now
Oh, no, not at all. Not at
because
all.
it was a couple months ago, I was like, hey, what about the Torch? Now it's all Torch all the time.
Hey, Foley requested. Conrad listens. Just saying. I just talked about myself in third person. Hey, so listen, there's two versions of this match. There is the original version that aired, and then there is the unedited version. So if you want to watch along on Peacock, you're more than welcome to. But if you'll cruise over to our YouTube, FoleyOnYouTube.com, we're going to have the unedited version, and that's the version that you actually recommended that we watch today. So,
yes. Now, I did say I told Leon I wanted to be excessively, I wanted to be really physical, and I said something about opening my eyebrow. And we had Harley there, who was an expert at such a thing.
Yes.
And then Leon just casually suggested yeah, maybe I'll break your nose. And I went, okay. And you will see that he became so determined. I have a little nose, right? He did break my nose that day. And my nose has been broken 3 times, but it's not all gnarled and twisted because I have a small nose. So Leon was expecting some major break and gushing of blood, and that never happened. But doggone it, he was bound and determined to make it happen. And anyone who's been hit, it hurts, right? It brings tears to your eyes. And he was doing it repeatedly. So we'll go ahead and watch.
You wrote in your book, you could actually hear the sick sound of his wrist bone breaking my nose. Vader looked for blood, and when he didn't see it, he became a man obsessed. He forgot all about the eye swelling and continually went after my nose. I wanted to tell the dumb bastard that I'd reconsidered and that maybe he ought to think about stomping his foot on the mat instead. Finally, after about a thimbleful of blood dribbled out, he remembered our talk about the eye. Boom, boom, 2 punches to the cheek and eyebrow, and down I went. And you even wrote, I have the unedited version on the tape. WCW refused to show some of it, and those 2 punches were awesome. I rolled out to the floor where Harley was waiting anxiously for his big punch. He took one look at me, however, saw that blood already streaming down from both my eyebrow and cheek, in addition to the little dribble from my broken nose. Damn it, it's already done, grumbled a disappointed Harley as he rolled me back into the ring.
Now, I remember sitting with Glenn Jacobs on a plane while I was writing that, and we were either talking or I was showing it to him to read, and the whole idea, what Harley said was, it's already done. But I depicted Harley, for the sake of telling a good story, as a guy who was going to take great joy in opening me up. And he went, damn it, it's already done, which is not what he actually said. He said, it's already done. And I think I said, in recapping the match, that even Harley seemed happy despite the bitter disappointment he'd had to endure.
It's tremendous. Of course, as you laid out in your book, the plan is 2 matches. The toll after match number 1 was impressive. Broken nose, dislocated jaw, 14 stitches in my eyebrow, and 7 underneath my eye. And the second match almost put me out of wrestling for good. Mm-hmm. Of course, this weekend is WrestleMania. There's going to be a whole lot of big-time performers trying to put on the performance of their life, and they're wanting to look better than ever. So a lot of them are using Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit. You too can look and feel your best in time for warmer weather with Factor's Calorie Smart Meals that are just like 550 calories or less. Maybe you're like me and it's just more convenient. I find myself too busy to cook, and with Factor, I can skip the trip to the grocery store. I can also skip the chopping, the prepping, and the cleaning up too. You see, Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes. So all you have to do is heat and enjoy. Factor has delicious, flavor-packed meals to help you live life to the fullest. Whether you're doing keto or vegan or calorie smart, or maybe you're bulking up with Protein Plus, these are great options. And when I say options, I mean a lot of them. 34 chef-prepared, dietitian-approved weekly options. So there's always something new to try. You'll never feel like you're stuck in a rut. They've even got breakfast and snacks covered. And if you're looking to cut back on takeout, save a little cash, and it'll be ready faster. Here's what I mean. Factor is cheaper than takeout, and it's ready in just 2 minutes. So put that time and money somewhere else. They also make eating vegan a snap. If that's something you're trying to do, I want you to know that this has all the ingredients you do want and nothing you don't want. That's where the dietitians and chefs come in, man. Get Factor and enjoy clean eating without the hassle. You just choose the meals you enjoy, and bam, here comes some fresh flavor-packed meals delivered to your door, ready in just 2 minutes with no prep and no mess. Head to factormeals.com/Foley50 and use the code Foley50 to get 50% off your first box. That's code Foley50 at factormeals.com/Foley50 to get 50% off your first box. So let's take a look at the unedited version. Of course, you can watch along with us if you're over on YouTube. It's Foley on YouTube.com. And let's take a look and see what we got here.
This is exciting.
So here we go. You're coming to the ring here. This is center stage.
Right.
Lots of the folks that you've worked with over the years, like Tony Schiavone, contend that center stage was a dump. What say you?
I liked center stage.
It looks cool from a television perspective.
It's just that a lot of the audience was dropped off by. It was like a babysitting service. It was free. The shirt was made by my wife. Pants by Carl and Hildegard, who were the go-to people at that time for tights.
And here he comes, Big Van Vader, the World Heavyweight Champ with Harley Race. I just love this presentation, man. Vader in '93 was something else.
He was something else, man. If WWE would have gotten that Vader,
oh gosh,
and they hadn't messed with his mind.
Imagine him versus Brett here, just in '93.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
They could have had a gold mine.
Did you ever have that poster?
I did have that poster. I don't know if I had it up on the wall. I had very little. I had some 8x10s. Me, Abdullah, Jim Ross, me and Dusty, a bunch of things. And I was bleeding at about 7 of the, say there were 10 photos. So when we went to sell the house, people would come in and take a look at this chamber of horrors in my basement. Now look at how much bigger he is than me.
Is this ring smaller than normal?
It's 2 feet smaller than WWE. I would say it's it's what would be considered like the standard good-sized ring. But
I think it's 20, but this is 18.
I think so, yeah.
It looks even smaller here in center stage. Maybe it's because there's 2 giants in there.
I don't know.
Vader not wearing the football lineman gloves. Did you have a preference, Vader with or without those gloves?
I didn't even think about it. I guess my preference would have been he probably took them off specifically so he could do the blood, sorry for the burp, do the damage.
The referee here is Nick Patrick.
Yep.
How was he as a referee?
I love Nick. I thought he was a great ref and a good guy. Liked riding with him. Him and Max Payne were great guys. They smoked cigarettes, so I didn't care for that. But Max had a car he called Miss Christine in honor of Jerry Jarrett's mom.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was like a big, I don't know if it was a Buick 225, but it was decked out with the best stereo I'd ever listened to in car.
That checks out for Max Payne. So a match like this, you guys have obviously discussed the spots where he's going to bust you open. Everything else, are you guys just calling in the ring?
Probably. That's the way Leon... all right, here we go. Bam.
These big clubbing blows.
So he's tagging me. There here comes the nose. Boom. He's trying to break that son of a gun. Right? And he probably already has. So
But he doesn't know it yet.
He doesn't know it. And I'm checking to see if I'm bleeding. Like I said, I'm look at that. He's coming right over the top.
Forearms to the jaw.
But yet, you'll have non-fans who will swear he's not touching me there.
Yes.
It's crazy that people will
disbelieve.
Yeah, the kick was probably unnecessary.
Golly.
But he was in full command, the who's the man. At this point, he's the best monster in the business.
I don't think it's close at this point.
Yeah,
these are all live rounds.
Yeah, these are all live rounds. This is him. He's already broken my nose, but he's trying to break something that's already been broken.
And you can't communicate that because the camera's right there.
Right. So these are things that did not show up. And Eric explained it to me. He said, Mick, we're going to lose sponsors. So I did say in my book that even though they weren't allowed to show a drop of my blood, that they did show all the legends for... whatever their pay-per-view was. Slamboree. Like every legend was bleeding in their promo clip.
What about the cameraman here? As far as you would know, was this Jackie Crockett?
I don't know if Jackie was on the apron. I think Jackie was usually on the floor, so I don't know who it was.
Did you have a favorite cameraman?
I love Jackie Crockett. I can't actually
He's still
tell.
coming after the nose.
Yep. And now let's see when he actually goes to the cheek and eye. Those are...
You can see the blood trickles on the
trickle
wrist tape already.
But
he wanted more.
Yeah, he was wanting more. He did become a little obsessed with the nose.
But notice how he keeps getting to his feet. How he won't lay down.
Look.
Oh, wow. Look at there. Scoop slam by you. Who says Foley's not a power wrestler?
There's a story behind that, and I'll tell it to you once we go off.
Body slam in a leg drop, brother. Should have cupped the ear.
It would take too long to tell the story.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Coming off the top, too. Look at this big man taking flight.
Flair never did that. He got caught every time. Look at you.
Oh, that's a nice little double down.
Yeah. Not the clothesline over the top that you like, but
right.
He went through and he's on the floor. Well, you've had some fun with those guardrails right there, and there's a little more.
Ooh, good thing Leon
moved that arm.
He got that arm. We thought we'd be clearly it's not anchored. Those bicycle racks, guardrails. But yeah, it's a good thing Leon moved his arm, or else he could have broken that elbow.
Do you like these guardrails better than the ones they use now?
Well, you had the opportunity to do a little more with them.
Look at Harley getting upside down.
Harley's the best, man. Harley was a great guy.
Look at the crowd, man. They're going wild for you, bang, bang. They can't believe you're making a comeback here.
This crowd was going absolutely banana.
Checking the nose here.
Yep. I think Nick's probably saying, holy crap, I don't know if Nick knew what he was in store for.
Who would have thought, man, this character that you designed all these years ago to be this crazed monster out of a horror movie, now a babyface. It's working.
It is working.
A sympathetic babyface. What do you think of the WCW ropes? I know the WWF used to use real ropes. These guys are using cables. Do you have a preference?
Well, the rope, those cables, here's the bump that later on I thought would cost me. Bam.
Oh, yeah, on the ramp you thought it's...
I got to be done, right? But that obviously takes a lot out of a guy.
Do you know if Vader ever had a rhyme or reason for why he took the mask off, similar to the way Lawler used to bring the strap down?
I don't know. All right, here comes the cheeks. Bam!
Oof.
Boom! Eyebrow, bam, and I'm...
So you guys are telling the cameraman, that's definitely not Jackie Crockett. You're telling the cameraman ahead of time you want to make sure you get tight shots of this?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, back in the corner, this ain't good. Any Vader match, Whew, don't get in the corner. Here they come.
So a cynic would look at the 2 punches it missed and think the whole thing was fake,
Yes.
you know?
The way you melted in the corner, that was good.
And I'm not opposed to guys missing punches.
Right, because you win the real fight, too.
Yeah.
Watch boxing.
It's been ugly since the opening bell. We knew it would be.
Imagine if you had a boxing match and the CompuStats, stats, you had a 100% connection rate.
It's fake.
Yeah.
Harley Race now.
So, all right, so this is
Your
probably
cheek's
where
already busted. You're
Harley
bleeding.
goes, oh, damn it, it's already done.
Yes.
Because this was the spot he was going to open me up at.
But you're already bleeding pretty good, and you can see the...
Let's see, but have they shown the face at all?
Not up close, but you can see it just in a flash. It's almost as if, as WCW would do later, as blood became less and less acceptable, they would just go to this shot and go a little wider.
Yeah. So I guess even then the call was made when they were shooting live to not
Don't
show a
shoot it up
close-up of the
close.
blood. But it was, you know what was cool about it? It was, we've all seen the Crimson Mask, right?
Yes.
But anytime you have the blood source that's not the forehead, I think it's good for,
Oh, yeah, it makes it real.
yeah.
How was this to take?
After everything else, walk in the park, you
There
know,
you go.
comparatively. But it was stiff. But I would say I thought he did.
You took a moonsault from him, too.
Yeah.
How does that compare to the Vader
It was
splash?
the anticipation and the fear. I'd say the Headhunters did a stiffer moonsault
My
than Leon.
goodness. You took that?
Yeah.
Who's this cameraman here? Do you recall his name? On the floor, shooting low.
That's probably Jackie.
Oh, that's a good-looking dude. That ain't Jackie.
And this was me right around 300
There's
pounds,
Jackie
I
on the
think.
right
Okay.
So Jackie's doing this shot that we're about to see. And you guys are brawling on the floor. If you're not watching along with us, you're missing out. This is fantastic. It's Foley on YouTube.com.
All right, they cut away. All right.
And here comes the clothesline.
Clothesline.
You duck. Vader nails Harley. But he's right back on you, and down you go.
Down I go, right?
Vader's moving around pretty great for a guy his size.
He was, man. He really was. And his knees, he had those zippers on his knees. I got a few of them, but nothing like Leon had.
Multiple knee surgeries over the years.
Yeah.
Big boot to the face.
It's just crazy. No drop of blood evident. And I just think that would have sold the whole angle.
Man, your face is already covered, though.
Yeah.
You're just not getting a tight shot of it. Of course, these days.
There we go.
guys
Yeah,
would
you
have
can see
gloves
there
on.
from the wide shot, but man.
Missed
And this is,
opportunity.
and I just understand that's the environment that we were in. And see, a couple of these almost look like botches, right?
Oh, man. Oh, had a flip there.
But I'm okay. Like I said, I'm okay with punches that miss.
You got a knee brace on, too.
Yeah, because I had the torn PCL at that time.
It kind of blends in with you.
Because
Second time those sets of bicycle racks go down.
Yep.
And now,
Here comes the flip, which I forget the name of. Is it just a tope? Or
we'll go with it. So now Cactus Jack climbs up. He's on the apron. Vader's still on the floor. And here you come. Down goes Vader.
yeah. And it's a count-out victory, but in this environment, nobody felt like they were cheated.
Right.
And a count-out victory over Leon, especially the way he's selling it.
Look at the crowd.
Yeah, I mean,
it's almost like, yes, you may have won, but maybe a better word to use is you survived.
Survived it, yeah. So I did have the torn posterior cruciate ligament. When Dusty pitched that idea to me, actually, it wasn't when he pitched it. It was when I saw the first couple weeks of Lost in Cleveland. And I just had a feeling that the plug was going to be pulled. And then I'm coming back. Like we see the struggles that a guy like Wardlow's having. Look at Leon doing a great job of selling this thing, right?
Yes, he is incredulous having lost to you. He can't believe it. Turning up the guardrails upside down at ringside. Of course, there's no fans nearby, but even Harley's got the good sense to say, I don't know what he's going to do. Let me get the hell out of the way.
So I said to Dusty, hey, look, I'd like to get my, as long as I'm going to be out for these 4 months, can I get some knee surgery? And the knee surgery saw me through. And they did, in fact, pull the plug. And when I came back with the surgically repaired knee and the 4 months off. But look, he's doing a heck of a job of selling it, you know? He's not trying to be cute. Tony is not trying to upstage the interview. One of my pet peeves would be the announcer trying to get the last word in. Look at it. This is great. I don't know what he's saying, but I believe every word of it.
Absolutely.
Because he's angry. This is where I love the idea. You're showing, in a way, vulnerability. You're showing that you can be hurt.
Yes.
But doggone it, you're going to tune in because you think this guy, he means every word he says. And Harley's going to say something about God's green earth here, I'm pretty sure.
So listen, you said you were going to tell us the story about the body slam, where Vader's coming off the top.
Oh yeah. So
then a leg drop.
I remember Leon trying to talk Tony Atlas into doing that slam that you just saw. And Tony didn't think he could do it.
Really?
Tony did not think he could do it, and they had a match. Man, I've got a lot of respect for Tony, especially after seeing that Brody episode on Dark Side of the Ring. But for whatever reason, Tony did not think that he could do it, and so much of life and wrestling is mental. And when they had their heel versus heel match, the time came to do the spot, and here comes Tony with the lift. Crowd really got up for it. And Tony let him down. I don't know why. It was just mental.
Wow.
So when we go to discuss that match, I said, Leon, remember that spot you were going to do with Tony Atlas in the corner? Scoop slam? He said, yeah. I said, you want to do it with me? And so we did. And, it was, I said on our Sting episode that me catching Sting in midair and dropping him into a Gilbert hot shot was probably the best power move I'd ever done. But
that's got to be it.
It's pretty good, right? It's pretty good. Scoop slam with a 450-pounder.
Our man Wade Keller had this to say. Cactus Jack defeated WCW World Champion Big Van Vader with Harley Race by countout in 13 minutes and 28 seconds when Vader hit the steel barrier chest first and Cactus followed with a somersault splash from the apron to the floor, and after the bout, Vader threw around the barrier in anger. Following the commercial break, Schiavone conducted an interview with Vader alongside Race, in which Vader challenged Cactus to a rematch and said it could be anywhere, and WCW didn't have to sanction it. He then said he wanted Cactus the following week, with Race saying Cactus just started a war that he wouldn't survive, and Vader continued to throw around the steel barrier as the show came to a close. I mean, when this is over, you've talked about how sometimes after a great match or a great moment, you feel that post-match high, that euphoria, the tingles in the back of your head. Are you feeling it here? Like, man, we did it.
Big time. When we went back to that dressing room, it was really a celebratory experience. Eric was really happy. This is before he got the word from up high that we couldn't show the blood. And I believe Eric had said, you can check him and see if he said, I've had my ass kicked many times, but never on purpose.
Right.
And even Ole was pretty happy with what we'd seen. So it was crazy that within 2 weeks or maybe 3 weeks, that angle went into such a bizarre place.
It did.
Lost in Cleveland. But man, we made such a good impression with this match and the follow-up that in some ways fans saw what they wanted to see. And I did, in my defense, I cut a good promo about how the thing had been a ruse on Leon, the Lost in Cleveland, trying to salvage it. And we did have a heck of a match at Halloween Havoc. But we were really feeling good. And I think now, I said, do you want me to do some promos? Post-match promos. And I think Eric said, Mick, they're never going to allow you on camera that way. And then I get a call, because we taped every 2 weeks, I think. I get a call saying, hey, we do want you to come down to center stage. We want you to do promos about Vader. And can you look like you did after the match?
Oh, my goodness.
So I had an 84 Chrysler LeBaron convertible, and I'm driving down to center stage. I got the convertible up. I got a little piece of sandpaper in my car, and I every once in a while stop like boom, boom, just trying to get a little bit of swelling, and it did look good. Now, not as good as it would have looked if I'd had like a makeup artist do it for me, or if they'd. There's nothing like the realism that after match would have given you.
What you're describing should be a movie.
Should be, right?
Because this is something. Make believe the world. I mean, you couldn't write comedy like this. The idea that you had it, they didn't want it, then they said they wanted it, and now there's this crazy looking guy punching himself at red lights with sandpaper in a convertible. Can you imagine the scene, what that would look like to other people at the stop? I mean, I sometimes see at a red light, I look over and see somebody picking their nose, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's secondhand embarrassment for me to see it. And you're punching yourself with sandpaper. If I'm sitting next to you, I'm running the doggone red light. I don't know what he's doing, but I got to get I am in danger. I got to go.
So Robert Fuller taught me the art of boogering. He called it boogering the eye.
Yes.
But he did it with like a washcloth, so that if you just dry and you twist it and turn it, you'll get that boogered look, with the redness. And I thought, well, the washcloth's good. Sandpaper probably better.
I mean, sandpaper is what they did with Steamboat back in the Crockett era. You wrote this in your book. The fans were completely caught up in the contest, and I think most of them could tell that something a little different was going on. Vader went for a splash against the rail and caught nothing but steel as I moved out of harm's way. One Cactus Jack upside down, crack smash later, and I rolled back into the ring, the winner of a count-out victory. The fans reacted like I just won the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. It was a rare moment of real emotion in a promotion that was almost void of it. Believe it or not, the locker room was like a huge celebration afterward. The other wrestlers were blown away by what they'd just seen. Even Ole Anderson came by and admitted that it had been a hell of a match. Vader and I hugged, and even Harley tried his best to put on a happy face, despite the bitter letdown he just endured. I love that you just can't help it. That's such good stuff.
And I like going back. This is me and Kane sitting in coach. So here's Kane and Mankind in coach, and I'm passing him this thing, and it's like to see Glenn at 6'9", his shoulders shaking, is like, despite that bitter setback he'd endured. And I should point out, just talking about the book, that there were like 3 or 4 guys who wanted updates. Steve Austin being the biggest proponent. And he go, kid, you got some more of that book I can read? And at that time, I was still a coach guy, or was I? Hold on a second.
No, you've been the champ. You were first class.
Yeah,
How about
maybe
that?
I've been lying to myself
First
all this
class
time.
Foley.
I tend to remember Steve sitting in first class, and
maybe he's in the front row and you're in the front.
Maybe. Yeah, I did get grandfathered in.
Yeah.
I got an F class fare after I beat The Rock. I remember going to X-Pac. I had never seen an F fare in my life. I'd seen B's and C's and D's. Y's was like the wide open fare that you could exchange freely. And back then you didn't get your tickets via email. You got a stack of tickets at the beginning of every month. Yeah, and you could, if you chose not to use them, you could use them towards another ticket. Pre 9/11, I used to actually send my mom tickets. They didn't check names. They did not check names. Abdullah the Butcher would enter a plane. A Butcher. Yeah. They did not check names, did not check destinations, which is why guys like Too Cold Scorpio could get on the wrong plane and fall asleep and arrive at the wrong destination.
It's a shame you never tried once as Mr. Bang Bang. I'm curious, when you're thinking about this moment that we just watched, I know you had some great moments with Sting, but at this point in your WCW run, is this the high bar? That feeling of euphoria in the locker room with the guys afterwards?
Man, yeah. That was one of the things I meant when I left wrestling. I've got enough things that I'm really content. I love doing the show. I think people can tell.
Yeah.
I love doing the cameos.
The conventions and meeting all the fans. You love all that stuff.
I love all that stuff. It wasn't until I went to the NXT house show in Philadelphia. Noel and Dewey were there. I was bringing Huey on a father-dad trip where we'd start out in Philadelphia, go to Maryland, West Virginia, and this is the one where I ended up hurting my back in Knoxville, and just had to decide, okay, those plans are waylaid because I can barely walk. It's 10 hours back to New York. 10 hours, it's 11, somewhere around 10 to 12 hours back to New York, 10 to 12 to Orlando. You want to go watch there's the big show with Becky and Sasha Banks, which was one of the great matches I've been on hand live to see, female or otherwise. But when I went into the dressing room after Charlotte and Sasha had what was the first women's house show main event in many years,
yeah,
it was just that feeling that I hadn't been around in a long time, and I missed that bonding feeling you have.
It's a high.
It is. It's a real high. And I remember asking Becky specifically after she had, some outstanding match, and I said, I miss those nights where you're so excited you can't sleep because you're replaying everything in your head.
Yes.
There are other nights where you can't sleep because things haven't gone the way you hoped, and you're replaying it in your head. But those incredible moments, and maybe I can count on two hands the number of times where it was just so real and that you just wanted to keep reliving it. And that's the way I felt, oddly enough, even with the stitches I needed above and below the eye. That's the way I felt.
You wrote in your book, I asked our TV people if they wanted me to tape some fired up backstage interviews. They said they really didn't think they could air my face in its current state. And the next day, Eric Bischoff told me that Turner wasn't going to allow the match to air, but he was fighting them on the matter. I hated to think that the whole thing had been for naught. I'd been stitched up above and below my eye. My nose had been broken, causing both of my eyes to blacken, and I dislocated my jaw. As a guy who had a martial arts background, Bischoff could appreciate what I'd been through. Exactly as you said. Cactus, I've had my ass kicked lots of times, but never that bad, and never had I let someone do it. The match did air, and I have to, in all sincerity, thank Bischoff for taking a stand, but every drop of blood had been taken out. I don't know how many hours they spent trying to homogenize it, but by making liberal use of crowd shots, long shots, and major editing, it paled in comparison to the real deal. Tony Schiavone is actually a pretty good announcer, but his stomach seemed a little weak for it, as he continually said, "Oh my goodness, oh my goodness." Governor Ventura seemed to enjoy it, though. Jim Ross, who was at the time announcing for the WWF, left a message on my machine saying he'd seen the match and he really wished he'd been the one on the call for it. That would have been special.
I think Tony's a very good announcer, but at that time, 99, I was probably only willing to go pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good.
But he did give the oh my goodness, and I think JR would have really
sold it.
Really sold it. But it was a shame. It was not nearly as powerful as it could have been if they'd just shown a few shots, just a few close-ups.
I loved your next comment in the book. You mentioned this, but a strange thing happened right after the match aired. A commercial played, hyping Slamboree, WCW's pay-per-view that paid homage to the stars of the past. And I'll be damned if every star they showed, from the Crusher to Vern Gagne to Blackjack Mulligan, if they weren't wearing the old crimson mask. I guess WCW's policy on blood was that they could air it if the footage was 20 years old. But we call blood, no way. This is Wrestling Politics 101 here, isn't it?
I don't know if it's wrestling politics as much as it is just going back to something Kevin Sullivan told me. I remember I wanted to do the elbow off the apron with Kevin, would have the opponent in the backbreaker and flip him. And I wondered whether we should wait for another situation to do it in, a bigger one. He said, brother, at this place, if you get half of what you want, that's going to have to be good enough. So that was the situation. WWE made errors that WWE would never make from a production standpoint. WWE had, I think, 10 times the budget for production. So that's understandable. But yeah, I was, you know, I was excited, but it could have been bigger if they just allowed a couple shots.
I just want to add some context to what we've just seen too, because I could see how a lot of people who grew up in the Monday Night War era, they would take a look at what we just saw and said, okay, so Cactus got beat up on a syndicated show. No, this was the A show.
That was the A show.
This is pre-Nitro.
Yep.
This is not main event. This is not pro. This is not power. This is none of that silliness. This is the A show for the number 2 promotion in the country. At that point, the number 1 show, Monday Night Raw, WWF, but the number 2 show.
No, there was no Monday Night Raw yet, was there?
Started in January 93.
Okay.
So it's just a few months in, but still, this is the primetime A show for WCW. It is Saturday night, and I know that once Nitro became a thing and Thunder became a thing, Saturday night moved down the pecking order. But this is a big deal, and you're in the main event, and a hot angle everybody's talking about. You've been striving to be in this spot for a while. Now you're finally here. Is it mixed emotions because you know you're going to be taking the 4 months off, or are you just enjoying the ride?
Yeah, I'm really excited to have those 4 months off and to go out, you know, to go out on a big. I'm excited to go out on a big, on a major note. Excited that I'll have the time to get my knee repaired, because that's what you know. Back in the day, you get the good Don Joy brace, right? It really does a lot for you. The PCL was, I would say, the least important of the ligaments. Mine's gone now because when in 2004, when I had my meniscus repaired after the Randy Orton and Kawada matches I had, I was able to see the surgery on a TV screen. And the doctor showed me that the cadaver ligament that had been put in had broken, and he said, he recommended that I not tend to it. So I'm without that ligament now, but it's the least important of the ligaments, you know? So, and look, you know, when you don't have ligaments, it's really in your best interest to drop some weight, you know? So that's why one of the challenges, now I will say, this is a little behind the scenes, it's not necessarily politics, but I did say last night, when I was talking to WWE about the possibility of me being involved, I said, I don't get around too well, and I'm a lot heavier than I was the last time I was on TV. Possibly could we come up with me already in ring instead of giving me an introduction? So we'll see if that comes about. But I think that would be better, because you don't want to take people's minds off the happiness of the occasion by going, ooh, God, somebody's not getting around too well. So yeah, I do have one torn, and there are 3 or 4 other partial tears, and I'm really on borrowed time as far as those ligaments go, especially with the weight. So
let's talk about the rating here. You got a 2.1 for that one, and you wrote in your book, the return match was a scary, eerie night that I'll long remember.
No, the 2.1, because the ratings were used against me by saying they didn't go up. But at that point, they didn't even have quarter hours.
That's right.
So I just thought, nobody's responsible for a full 2-hour show. But WCW really took a lot of pride in those ratings. So I think I've said this before. There was a lot of hype put into was it the Kongs? The guys that Harley managed?
Yep.
They weren't the awesome Kongs, right?
They weren't much. There wasn't much awesome about them.
They had those overcoats they wore,
Yes.
And I'm fully aware that Awesome Kong is TNA's, Kia Stevens.
Yes.
But I remember going to get my check or something, and there was a big sign on the door at WCW that said, "Welcome to WCW, home of the 3.8 or whatever they had done. But the 2 and I did put together. I spent dozens and dozens of hours putting together a thing, charts showing, especially when me and Dustin Rhodes had 5 or 6 weeks of the Sunday night show, that I could show that the ratings were growing each and every week. But the 2.1 was nothing special. But But my hope was that people would be talking about it, and in in the age of the telephone, people would be calling each other saying, "Hey, man, you got to check this out."
You wrote that this return match was a scary, eerie night you'll long remember, and this stood out, man. Before leaving home, I wrote a note for Colette. Mm-hmm. It was essentially a last will and testament instructing her on what to do in case things didn't turn out too well. Thank God she never had to read it. I hope you don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that the ramifications of this match were tremendous and the risk of serious injury was extremely high. As the willing participant of a powerbomb on the concrete floor, I was putting myself in a precarious predicament. I was essentially letting the most dangerous man in the business perform the sport's most dangerous move on a concrete floor. As I mentioned earlier, I had seen Vader temporarily paralyze Joe Thurman with the move inside the ring that had some give to it. I'd seen that powerbomb literally knock out others, and as I mentioned earlier, I'd seen some kids quit the company rather than risk the consequences of that powerbomb. The biomechanics of the powerbomb are simple. Simply flip your bent-over opponent in the air as high as possible and bring his back, neck, and head down to the canvas with as much force as possible. It can be scary to watch. Something seemed wrong when I walked into center stage that afternoon. The hallway seemed a little darker. The atmosphere seemed a little heavier. Dusty called me into his office. Just for the record, Cactus, stream started without his usual animation. I don't want you to do this. I think by saying this, Dusty was relieving both his conscience and any legal liability the company might have. I appreciate that, Dusty, I said, but this is important to me. Vader also tried to talk me out of it, but again, I said no. Mm-hmm. This is one of the darkest passages you've ever written.
Yeah, for sure.
The idea that you felt the need to write a last will and testament for Colette. Man, I've heard a dedication to your craft, but is this a little crazy?
A little bit. And I can, as you're reading that, I'm just playing devil's advocate for fans going, powerbomb's not dangerous. Like, dude, back in the day, now like the pop-up powerbomb, Kevin Owens takes perfect care of people. The key, you drop people flat, it's okay. But back in that day, there were some big guys, and they wanted that almost like whiplash.
Tonga nearly killed Ricky Steamboat with it.
Yeah.
We're not saying that to, I mean, maybe you don't recall, but it's worth a Google. It fractured his skull. They had to remove part of Steamboat's skull. Mm-hmm. Like, he was in a very tough spot.
Right.
And very recently, when this happened, this same guy in this same building, in this same ring, paralyzed the dude. Mm-hmm. You were there. And that was on a canvas that did have a mainspring underneath.
Right.
And a little bit of foam and wood, not poured concrete.
Yeah. And I'm not picking on Danny Spivey, and I don't think Danny listens to the show, but geez, Danny was doing power bombs that were just outright dangerous.
Yes.
Where you're wondering how somebody's getting up. And you know that was okay in Japan. Steve Williams was doing the backdrop driver,
dropping dudes on their head,
and they were lining up to take it.
Yes.
You know, and I mean the key is to get the forearm back there. And speaking of the forearm, I didn't even realize this wasn't a conscious thing, but I guess through constant repetition, when I would hit, sometimes I was talking to Lita about the fact when I saw Lita last week that I only did the bumps with the elbows. First of all, I don't like the idea of actively looking like you're breaking your fall.
Yes.
You know, what I'm doing here is I'm pantomiming the idea of slapping the mat. But more importantly to me is that I had a real sensitive bone there in my elbow that would become inflamed every time, badly inflamed, to the point, you go, oh my goodness, I just touched that thing. So I'd be there with this big hockey pad. But even with the hockey pad, man, I'd be in so much pain. So I learned to take the bump, which I thought was more realistic, going backwards, still allow me to disperse a lot of the impact over the widest possible part of your body, which is what you're looking for. But over time, and you would see it when Vader gave me the power bomb, which, to his credit, was not the same power bomb that he gave to guys in the ring.
Yes.
So he brought me up. He kind of dropped me as opposed to driving me.
Driving me in, yeah.
And when I hit, my arm instinctively went behind my head. And even with that being done, I still had a pretty good concussion. Lynn Brent took me. I was brought by ambulance to the hospital. Lynn Brent drove me home about 3 hours later, and I had to ask her to pull over urgently. I didn't have a
an Uso bloodline
a
shirt.
bloodline shirt to throw up into. So
Lynn Brent is Dennis Brent's wife.
Dennis Brent's wife. Yeah. So I threw up on the road. I don't want to take you out of your order because we're not going to see that match.
We're going to watch it.
Oh, we're going to watch it. All right, let's watch it, then we'll comment.
Before we do, I want to tell everybody where to go watch it. It's on Peacock. It's WCW Saturday Night, Season 2, Episode 17. You cut a promo for the match. It's not long into the episode, just 38 seconds in, and you wrote, I had an interview scheduled for the middle of the show. Dusty wanted me to talk about it. He was uncharacteristically low-key. Cactus, when you give this interview, I don't want you to think beforehand about anything you're going to say. This is an emotional night. I want the fans to feel your emotion. This was a valuable piece of advice, and with the knowledge that Dusty Rhodes was one of the great promo men in the business, I took it to heart. As good as many of my promos were, I had the habit of walking around backstage before the interviews, practicing what I was going to say. That night from center stage, I spoke right from the heart. I honestly can't remember what I said, but that night, as is true in most cases, it's not as much about what you say that's important, but it's how it's said. I'll always be thankful to the Dream for that small piece of advice that would make my later ECW interviews so memorable. That's a really nice,
great, right?
Little nugget there.
To have
speaking
that
for the heart. You
know, one thing I when Dusty passed, Cody, Cody and all of his children clearly love their dad. And Cody was, I think, he was hurt by the idea that people thought Dusty was just about himself. And so I wrote an article where I talked about how much he gave freely to people, even knowing that they would, in a sense, be his own competition.
Yes.
So by giving me this gift of his knowledge, he enables me to cut better promos down the line than I probably could have without his help. And I know it sounds silly, but later on we did become competition on the indie scene, for autographs and things like that. But man, to have Dusty talk about that, and I believe there was also, I may have been holding something which was one of my front teeth I had as an earring. And Eric came up with this great idea, and it was never followed up on. But at the end of the match, after I'm being taken away, I'd taken this little pouch and I'd put it over somehow wrapped it around the turnbuckle or something along those lines. And you saw a mystery pair of hands taking that little pouch, taking it down. We never followed up on it, but I just thought it was a pretty interesting detail and a good move by EB.
Nice storytelling.
Yeah.
All right, so by now you know that I love saving money, but what you might not know is my favorite thing is saving money I didn't know I was spending. I call that found money here in Alabama, and that's why I love using Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill. Hey, are you wasting money on subscriptions? 80% of people have subscriptions they forgot about. Maybe for you, it's an unused Amazon Prime account or a Hulu account that never gets streamed. And there's this great app I use that helps me track all of my expenses. And because of it, I no longer waste money on subscriptions I don't even use. You might have heard of it. It's called Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill. And I know what you're thinking. Man, I think I only spend like $80 a month. Did you know that it's actually probably closer to $200 or more? You see, the app shows you all your subscriptions in just one place, and then it cancels for you whatever you don't still want. Rocket Money can even find subscriptions you didn't even know you were paying for. You may even find out you've been double charged for a subscription. To cancel a subscription, all you got to do is press cancel, and Rocket Money takes care of the rest. So get rid of those useless subscriptions with Rocket Money now. Go to rocketmoney.com/Foley. Seriously, it could save you hundreds per year. That's rocketmoney.com/Foley. Cancel your unnecessary subscriptions right now at rocketmoney.com/Foley. Well, listen, we'll go ahead and listen to that promo now.
Right now is making his way towards us. You can hear the fans here and the cheers, the applause for this athlete out of Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. After what we saw last week, now this man, 27 stitches, broken nose, a concussion, Big Van Vader says, I want you one more time. You don't have to look for me. What's going through your mind about getting back in the ring with Big Van Vader?
When you step in the ring with Big Van Vader, a lot of things go through your mind. It's been a very big week for me. A week of high mountains and low valleys. You understand? The biggest win of my career, but the worst beating of my life. So now you step in the ring again with Big Van Vader and lots of things are flashing through my mind. The cheers of the fans, it's something new. Something I need to get used to. Fear. Fear's nothing new in my life, you understand? My fear is okay. What I'm gonna do out here may surprise a lot of people. I'm gonna talk about something very un-Cactus Jackish. What I'm talking about is my family. People may find it hard to understand, but I got a wife and a little baby boy who think their dad's about the greatest thing in the world. And when I stepped out of that hospital, I saw something in their eyes I'd never seen before. It was fear. It was a look saying, Daddy, don't climb back in the ring with Big Van Vader because he did this to me. He did this to me. But I've got to, you see, this thing's way above me. It's way above Big Van Vader. It's above anything I've ever taken part in. I've got to do it. But Vader, win, lose, or draw, this is the last time. If you can take me out, if you can put Cactus Jack down, then you do it. You've got my respect. You've got my awe. But I've got something that very few people do. A win over the world champion. So tonight, Big Van Vader, rest assured, as I hold on to the things dearest to my life, I'm telling you, you hold on for the ride of your life. You want to destroy Cactus Jack, understand something and understand it very well. I've been trying to do the same thing for most of my 27 years and couldn't get the job done. Neither will you. Neither will you. Bang, bang.
Okay, that's from Cactus Jack. Let's go to Jesse Ventura.
All right, now let's watch the match. It's 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 47 seconds. We want you to watch along with us over on Peacock. This is fantastic stuff, boys and girls. It aired April 24th, 1993. Go 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 47 seconds in, and we're going to watch, maybe at this point, the most iconic match of your career?
Maybe, yeah. Maybe.
I mean,
so.
before the Hell in a Cell, this was kind of the crazy bump everybody talks about.
Yeah, well, I would say, maybe the Bash at the Beach with Sting. A few of the things I did in WWE before this, but this is up there with one of the best things, I think, that I did up until that point.
I want to talk about Danger. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1, play.
Memory serves me correct, this crowd was live for this thing, too.
Look at you, all bandaged up, ready to go.
And I've got the little pouch there, yeah.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how nervous are you here?
I'm really nervous. I'd say I'm up there at the upper echelons of the 9. Wearing another shirt that my wife made. I know we did sell that one with profit down the road.
Where did those boots wind up?
I think they were stolen. I do think those boots were stolen in New Orleans. There's the little pouch.
Your referee here is Randy Anderson, no longer Nick Patrick. And there you see Gary Michael Capetta. What did you think of old GMC as an announcer?
Oh, I really like Gary. Yeah, I really like him. I was in touch with him, I think, last year, asking him if I could borrow some verbiage from his book for that little memoir I wrote for my family.
Yeah.
And so he was glad to do it.
Here he is, the top guy, the biggest heel in the business, Big Van Vader.
And he's got a point to prove. Going back to that promo, that was just dynamite. Again, I don't know what he said, but I believed every word of it.
What do you think of his Who's the Man routine? Before he jumped in the ring.
I liked it, and I bet he wished he had copyrighted It's Time because Bruce Buffer's done really well with that. Oh, I just slammed Harley in the ring. Look at that.
Hot start to this one.
And this is maybe the biggest flurry of offense. You know, I think I'm rattling him with both lefts and rights here in a second. The forearms.
5 or 6 elbows in a row.
Yeah,
here.
and then he's just going to come back. Bam.
He's got the gloves on for this one.
He's got the gloves on for this one, okay.
What about a Vader headbutt? How's that?
Not bad, I don't think.
What do you think of this tinsel entrance?
It's horrible.
Oh, yeah.
It's awful.
Feels like something out of Boogie Nights.
Yeah. Feels like they just took some tinsel off from one's Christmas tree. And
Look at this. Cactus got a chair, I think.
Look at you with coming back through with a chair. I like that the realism of, I mean, we've never as fans seen what's just on the other side of that.
Right,
tinsel,
yeah.
So it adds to that sense of realness. Now, listen, we've talked a lot about his punches to you. Are you returning fire with some live rounds? Trying to take care of them a little bit?
They looked pretty good.
Yeah, they did.
They looked pretty good. Not a lot of room for error there. So I believe I was bringing them to some extent.
Did you guys have, I mean, we always hear about this on the WWF side of things. Was there an agent for this match?
You really didn't have agents. You may have passed on what you wanted to do, but even agents in 98, 99 were more sounding boards. They didn't take you through the match. You had more freedom. I believe now the agents or producers are much more involved.
Setting up the big suplex on the floor here, right by those bicycle racks.
Whoa!
And remember, that's what took Vader out for the count-out loss last time. And look, back, more physicality with you and Harley.
Harley takes his second slam.
On the floor. Body slam.
Am I gonna hit Harley with a we're gonna drop the elbow on Harley?
Yes,
Bam!
you are. Boy, if the little kid in you could see you now, huh? You're dropping an elbow on the world's champ. Greatest wrestler on God's green earth.
It looks like I might get the count out again here.
And the crowd is with it, but the referee is on the floor.
Pee Wee mullet game strong.
Yes, it is. You'd think it was a clip-in if you didn't know it was 93. Danny McBride, eat your heart out. Back in the corner, a lot of those forearms.
And, they're going lefts and rights. Look at that. Bam. So I said Leon was the best impenetrable wall that I've ever been up against. And you could break down the wall, but you had to work at it.
Yes.
You know, it was different in WWE. I remember he was working, Leon was working with Shawn Michaels. And Steve Austin's watching the match. He goes, damn, Leon's really got that style down. And then he pauses and goes, now he's just got to lose 200 pounds to fit it. Because he wasn't working like a monster. He was trying to please everybody by going down on everything. You know, when I say going down, taking bumps
up and down,
for everything. Whereas the key was you had to work hard back in this day to get Leon down.
To just get him to a knee.
Yeah, it was a feat, yeah. Whoa! Did you see that? Did you see that? Eat your heart out, Mr. Saito. And back in the day, that was a pretty good back suplex.
No doubt.
Now it would get a yawn.
Oh, look, you did this to him last time. Now he's going to do it to you. Oh, my goodness, that one didn't work out. Vader's back firmly in control here.
There's still some good back and forth. You know?
Yeah, I don't know that I want Vader jumping on me like that.
A lot of trust in there, right?
A lot of trust in there.
The boots that were stolen were actually sold to me by Ted Petty, who was a cheetah kid. Yeah, that's why Cactus wore the leopard. Ted came back. He said he bought some boots in Mexico. They didn't fit. Sold them to me for $100 or $110.
You got your money's worth.
And even after I lost them, you know, then I did go like 8 months wearing cowboy boots in some of the biggest matches of my career. And then I had the leopards made for my Cactus Jack matches in WWE.
Yeah, those are some of the more iconic boots, I think, your Cactus Jack boots you're wearing here.
Those are really cool. I remember Jeremy Borash sending me a photo from behind the scenes in NXT with Tony Storm wearing the leopard boots, putting it out there in case I was possessive about them.
Yes.
And I loved it. I thought it was great.
It was brutal last week. It's as brutal this week.
Cactus certainly a week ago.
Vader, he's on your Mount Rushmore favorite opponents.
Unfortunately, from Mount Rushmore only
Big four.
4, and
The Taker's on there. Sting's on there.
no, I would go with Taker, Funk, Steve, Rock.
Wow. Okay.
Oh wait, Hunter's still running WWE?
Yes.
Okay.
So get rid of the Rock.
Yeah, get rid of that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, he's got his own energy drink. How much more does he need from you?
Get rid of somebody. I loved working with Hunter too. But I would say the matches with Leon were so physical. I did get that amazing rush and that high that we talked about, but they weren't necessarily fun. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. And he's got you here in a. It looks like he's setting up a Death Valley driver, but squishes you again. The old Samoan drop.
Right. And here comes probably the Vader bomb.
Bruce Pritchard has talked about how, for whatever reason, at times, Vader wasn't always really keen to wash his gear. He had to deal with some complaints. Is that an issue with you?
Pot.
Kettle. Got it.
Look, there were times you would you shower up and you might put your stuff in your bag and forget about it.
Yes.
And there have been some big stars in the business who have done that, and I was guilty of it. So I'm not going to throw stones from my glass house that I'm living in.
So you would write in your book, the match itself was a solid piece of business. Many considered it better than the first, although obviously I couldn't absorb the same shots to the face again. Would you agree with that? I mean, it's almost like you say that this one is not as good as the first match, in your opinion, at the time when you wrote the book.
I said in some ways I thought it was better.
Okay.
And remember, this is a crowd. A lot of them are there every 2 weeks. A lot of kids, teenagers being dropped off by a parent. And so it's not the best place to get genuine emotion, which is why that reaction at the end of the last match was so unusual.
There's that Cactus clothesline.
There's a lot of weight going over the top. Seriously, that's about 750 pounds going over the top rope.
Big slam on the floor. Eat your heart out, Hogan Andre. Look at Vader moving around to get in this position.
You get in the position now. Is this all right? They're moving the guardrail. Is that to get the camera shot or to allow
the cameraman or Harley move that guardrail out of the way for you? And Harley running a distraction with the ref. Oh, that couldn't have felt good. Somersault bump onto the floor, but at least there were mats.
At least there was a mat.
Damn it!
Yeah,
Here comes Harley to say, "We'll correct that."
Yeah.
And now he's calling for it. Harley is pointing to the concrete.
And Tony gives a great call. He says, "Don't do it."
Oh my God! If he does that, he'll kill him.
Yeah. So here I am. I'm expecting the absolute worst. I'm preparing for the worst, and Leon takes care of me. So now, 30 years later, it doesn't look like as big a deal, but it was a big enough deal for me to get a pretty good concussion from it.
You wrote in your book when he put your head between his massive thighs, "I was talking out loud. I love you, Colette. I love you, my tiny man." And then your initial reaction was strange. You said, "That didn't feel too bad, but it didn't look good on TV."
Yep.
And then my right foot and hand went numb.
Mm-hmm.
And you would write, as we see you selling here, and Pee Wee Anderson checking on you here at ringside, and Harley standing over you. They're going to go to commercial. When they come back, we see everyone working on you here. It looks like emergency medical. The EMTs are here. You got the neck brace on. They're trying to put you on the stretcher. You wrote, I lay there for about 40 minutes while we waited for an ambulance. Now, a lot of fans speculated I wasn't as hurt as I acted, and to some extent that was true. I probably could have moved, but the longer I lay there with the other wrestlers all around me, the more I thought I really was in trouble. After a few minutes, I became scared to even try to move my hand and foot. How you doing, you sexy thing? Asked Scorpio in an attempt to get me laugh. Scarp, I said softly, I can't move my foot. Sorry, he replied.
Yeah.
The ambulance finally arrived, and I was put on a stretcher. Several people in the audience were crying. I was placed in the ambulance, and of all people, Jesse Ventura came along for the ride. As the ambulance pulled away with sirens wailing, the show faded to black. It was great drama. Was it staged? Yes, but in many ways, it was real nonetheless. So the longer you're sort of selling this,
the more I'm either believing in it.
You're getting in your head.
I'm getting in my head. There was some numbness in the extremities, and that was really concerning. But I think also there's part of me still is like, it didn't look good enough. You know, I really wanted things to look good, but it's
what we're seeing feels real.
Yeah, and that's why it was so jarring when the first Lost in Cleveland came out, and it was a total...
it was tongue-in-cheek?
Yeah, it was a little silly. Really silly.
Yes.
Without... it still was an effective return, but it could have been much better.
Wade would write, paramedics and babyface wrestlers surrounded Jack as he was strapped to the stretcher and carried to an ambulance outside the arena. Several reports have surfaced that WCW was planning on creating a storyline where Jack was out of action as a result of the powerbomb with or without legitimate injury, thus building towards a big money rematch. Others have suggested the injury is not as bad as being portrayed by WCW, and Jack, who is playing up the injury as legitimate to further the angle. Either way, don't expect to see any more powerbombs on cement floors. Do you remember there being an edict? We can never do that again.
I don't.
You would write, as I was wheeled into the hospital and while strapped to the gurney, I was asked by an especially sensitive fan if I would pose for a picture with her. Upon admission, I was checked out thoroughly, given a battery of tests, including a CAT scan that revealed, you guessed it, a concussion. X-rays were taken and fortunately revealed no fractures. The doctor informed me I had suffered a severe blow to the back of the head, which had likely caused my brain to more or less short circuit, causing the temporary loss of sensation in my extremities. I was given a list of things to do and not to do and released around 1 a.m. Janie Engel, a WCW front office employee, drove me home.
Oh, she drove me home, not Lynn. Okay, my bad.
I was groggy, but all things considered, I felt pretty fortunate. In reality, Vader had taken care of me pretty well. He had followed through with me and released me low to ensure a safer landing. If it had been a typical Vader power bomb, things might have been a lot worse. Mm-hmm. Pull over, please, and then you have your bloodline moment. When I got home, Colette met me at the door and gave me a long embrace. I went upstairs and kissed my sleeping little buddy and then went into our bedroom where, against doctor's orders, I fell asleep myself, and I awoke to the ringing of the phone.
Harley.
Just wanted to check on you.
Harley Race wanted to check on me. Can I tell the story?
Please do.
I said, Harley, do you think it went okay? And he said, it couldn't have gone better if we did it 100 times. And I said, thank you for checking on me, Harley. And then his next words were, kid, you are the new Harley Race. So, when people would knock what I did, in my heart, I'd be like, Harley likes what I do. And that's probably more important.
This feels like the end of an FMW videotape here, does it not? The ambulance ride.
I guess it does.
I mean, listen, it adds a sense of realism.
Yeah. I
am curious, though. Were you surprised Jesse took the ride with you?
Yeah. I thought that was really effective because, Jesse, even when he didn't do a lot of homework in WCW. I think that's what
He liked to freestyle.
He liked to freestyle it. But he was still very good. Maybe not as good as he was when he was with Vince, but he was still very good. But it wasn't like in his on-air character to be the
Most
compassionate guy.
Yeah.
And so by him taking that ride with me, I thought was a really big deal.
What are you guys talking about? Do you recall? Are you having? I mean, is it?
I don't know.
Is he here like, good job, kid? They'll let us out in a few minutes, or is he? Do you think he was legitimately concerned?
I wish I could remember.
Of course, we've talked about the ratings. We should address it. You wrote in your book. Ric Flair said, "You and Vader had the most brutal bouts I've ever witnessed, but your rematch didn't raise the ratings at all. Nobody cares about you as a babyface."
Yeah, that was. I would have felt more comfortable if they'd had quarter-hour breakdowns.
You even wrote that. At the time, WCW's flagship show was Saturday Night. Also at that time, there were no quarter-hour breakdowns to accurately determine just who was responsible for viewing patterns. In other words, Flair was holding my 15 minutes on air responsible for the ratings of the entire 2-hour show. He also failed to realize that the ratings increase are more results of trends and ongoing storylines than just one match. In my book, Flair was wrong about the ratings, but he sure as hell was right about the brutality of my matches with Vader.
Yeah. So jumping ahead to the Monday Night Wars.
Yes.
If someone was responsible for ratings drops 3 consecutive weeks, you could expect their push to be reduced. Likewise, if somebody could prove that, look at Jericho talks about being the demo god, right? You can't do that without quarter-hour breakdowns.
Right.
So who knows? Maybe the quarter-hour breakdowns would have shown that it was not a big deal ratings-wise. But again, I do think it's, you can hotshot a big match and get a rating out of it. But from a storytelling point of view, you want something that builds and is followed up on, and then that becomes a bigger deal.
So I know that night you get a call in the middle of the night from Harley Race to check on you. I think that's awesome. Says a lot about him. We know what Flair eventually says about the ratings. Does Vader or anybody else call and check on you in the next coming days, Dusty, anything like that?
I honestly
leave you to it?
Honestly, I think there was. I think there was. I never got the sense that I was forgotten about.
Right.
And plus, we knew that within a couple weeks, I'd be shooting this Lost in Cleveland stuff. And as goofy as it turned out to be, I mean, Dusty had a great idea.
Yes.
Let's tell this story cinematically. It was not the right tone, but the idea was there. The execution was not.
We got to talk about Lost in Cleveland in long form some other time. But in regards to this comment that Flair made to you about the ratings, is that something he says to you 2 weeks later?
No, that's something he said to me in Germany the night I lost my ear, which was almost 29 years ago, almost to the day, with give or take a week, because they were going to turn me heel.
I see.
Had I not lost my ear that night, there would have been a heel turn, and probably not a very good one either. So, but then the loss of the ear and the subsequent lack of follow-up was the writing on the wall that I needed to show that it was time to leave. So I was making $3,000 a week. By the time my contract was up, I had a second child. Noelle was born in December of '93, but I just felt like I was always willing to bet on myself.
Yeah.
You know, that's tough when you give up a 6-figure income to go out to the great unknown. There were no cons at that time. Right. A wrestler, like I said, even when we came on board in WWE and we would do autograph shots, it was $200 or $300.
Yeah.
You know, you could not make a living going to conventions and doing signings were in the $200 to $300 range. And so when I went out on the independent scene, I think when I left in '90, my rate was $250. When I got out in '94, I think I was getting $750 pretty regularly, except I wrestled for ECW was $500 a night, except for the arenas, which was $750. So you could make a living, and a pretty good living, but you had to work really hard to do it, and you had to be out there on the road every weekend.
Let's talk about what Wade wrote after the match. Jack, real name Mick Foley, says he spent the night in the hospital after being diagnosed with a serious concussion. Jack lost all feeling in his right arm up to his elbow and in his left hand. He still did not have complete feeling back in his left hand 4 days later and has had trouble sleeping. because he lost his equilibrium. He says he cannot drive and certainly cannot wrestle. WCW does not have him booked for the foreseeable future. It appears he'll be out of action up to 6 weeks. According to people at Center Stage the night of the taping, it appeared the entire dramatic episode that aired this past Saturday night was not completely pre-planned. Certainly, it was not in the plans for the powerbomb to cause legitimate injury to Jack. Now, he's saying this as if Jack says, were you in communication with Wade back then?
I don't think so. It's not out of the question because that's a legitimate news story, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So it's not out of the question, but I can't tell you whether or not he called to check on me. It's possible. And I do know I kept my car at Center Stage for those 6 weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
Because you weren't driving or you wanted to sell it even more?
I think a combination of both.
Okay.
I probably got back behind the wheel a week later.
I see.
But I kept the car there until I returned to Center Stage.
Wow, I love that. Tony Chris asked a question here. He says, what was the story with the brown bag Mick carried around this time? It was said there was something important in it, but I don't remember what came of it.
It was my one of my front teeth. Hey, just looking ahead. Now, this is my Hell in a Cell smile. It's pre-cell, post-cell. So 2 teeth knocked out, and you can see this one's about ready to go. 25 years later, I'm going to have to lose another tooth. I'm going to have to lose 2 more teeth. And I believe I will have jewelry made out of those. That could be a good eBay item.
Oh,
right?
my gosh.
Yeah.
I love that you're thinking, boy, as I lose more body parts, business is a booming. Listen, we don't have to do all that. Instead, you can just go to foleyisPodshirts.com. Get the now it's the infamous Mr. In Your House shirt. Because as we all know, nobody came through more.
Wouldn't matter less than this guy here.
Foley.
The #1 name in secondary pay-per-views.
The best. FoleyIsPodShirts.com. If you're not watching on YouTube, you're missing out. You're not getting the full experience. I encourage you to go to FoleyOnYouTube.com. And I also want to say, if your business targets men 25 to 54 years old, buddy, there's no better place to advertise than right here on Foley Is Pod. You've heard us do some of the same ads for the same companies over and over and over. Well, why is that? Well, because it really works. With a super targeted audience, there's very little waste. Go right now to advertisewithfoley.com. That's advertisewithfoley.com. And we should mention, Mick is back on Twitter. Kind of. Foley Is Pod is where you can find everything you need to know about the show on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And, of course, if you're looking for a special experience for the big wrestling fan in your life, just in time for WrestleMania weekend, check out Cameo. I think it goes without saying, you put a lot of effort into this. You're the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be at wrestling cameos. And next week, we're going to get to talk about WrestleMania and what your experience was like. Of course, what you may or may not be doing at the Hall of Fame. And we'll talk about when you went into the Hall of Fame. So next week should be a fun episode. You get all these shows early and ad-free over at adfreeshows.com. It's more than a dozen different wrestling podcasts starting at just $9 a month, and you can try it absolutely free right now starting at just $9. You'll also see a brand new episode we just posted with John Filippelli. We've got great stuff with David Crockett. And here's a little spoiler. Got something in the can with Jim Johnston, the guy who created so many legendary things.
Should be in the Hall of Fame to me.
Should be in the Hall of Fame. David Sahadi's coming up. Something for everybody here at adfreeshows.com, including if you like these watch-alongs today, we've got great ones with Eric Bischoff watching Starrcade 97, Kevin Nash watching his historic streak-ending win over Goldberg, Earl Hebner watching the original main event, Hogan versus Andre, with the evil twin referee, his debut in the company. All that and so much more at adfreeshows.com. And Mick, I can't believe this is real. WrestleMania is here, and you're in LA as folks are listening to this, and they can come see you at WrestleCon. It's the place to be.
It is a place to be. Oh, man, it is. It's incredible. The access is a different animal. The access is incredible also. But there are far more guys, far more people at WrestleCon. Everyone's there. It's a good time. And there is, it's competition among the guys, the men and women. Everyone wants to do well. I would say only 25% of the men and women actually turn a profit for there.
Really?
That's my guess. Because you go there and you see 20 out of 150 people doing really well, I would say. And so there is a lot of competition, friendly competition, but you want to do well. You're out there, you want to be part of it, you also want to make some money. And it's a good opportunity to meet fans from all around the world. That's one of the great things, is that I would say 50% of the people you meet at WrestleCon have come from other lands.
I love that.
To be there. It's really cool. And then we've got by the time we talk about it, WrestleMania
tomorrow night.
WrestleMania is tomorrow night. I'm really looking forward to that. Do we know where people can go to find out about WrestleMania?
WrestleMania.com.
WrestleMania.com.
Got it in the lower third here at FoleyOnYouTube.com. You can, and don't forget, all of this money goes directly to charity. You're not bringing home $1. Neither's Mickey James. This is all for a great cause, and it's a great time with some unprecedented access and a nice little post-night one Mania action. So check it out.
And the cool thing, to me, one of the cool things about WrestleMania is not only is it for a great cause, but we were, in a way, Mickey wanted to do it on Friday night at the Millennium Biltmore, but who had that time reserved? We did.
Yes.
And Mickey was just wondering if she could be part of my show, and then you and I talked. It was like, I don't want to take this away from the women.
This is a great cause.
This is a great cause. Like, we can do this another time.
Absolutely.
So I countered by going, would you like me to host? And so it all fell together. It's a pretty feel-good time. And
that's tomorrow night, right after WrestleMania, night one, back at the WrestleCon Hotel. So if you're staying there anyway, just get on back to your hotel. Come say hello to Mickey and Mick. And let's raise some money for a great cause.
Let's do it. Thanks for another great episode, Conrad Grillo. Thank you.
And we'll be back next week talking about what you may or may not have done at the Hall of Fame and you going into the Hall of Fame yourself right here on Foley Is Pod.
Yeah.
Hey guys, need to call a quick time out here. Wanted to tell your listeners what I've been telling my listeners over at OU Didn't Know for a while now about all the cool things happening over at adsfreeshows.com.
A brand new series has arrived on Ad Free Shows. Top of the Card unpacks everything you need to know in the wrestling trading card space. And we're starting with the granddaddy of them all, the 1982 Wrestling All-Stars Series A set.
Now, this set was not exclusive to any one territory at the time, as we were still right at the tail end of the territory era of professional wrestling. So it was basically a who's who in professional wrestling, with card number 1 being Andre the Giant. Others included in the set include Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, Ted DiBiase, and others.
20 years ago, Eric took on Stone Cold in the main event on Raw, but the real main event was the confrontation that happened backstage before the show.
Now, the next week, I'm sitting in this chair, and that same guy, I don't think I had said a word to him that day. I don't think I had seen Rick up until the point he came through that door. And he's, getting me, just telling me to get up, get out of the chair. And he's so pissed off, he's bleeding. I'm on the phone, and he's got blood running down his chin because he bit his lip. He was so mad, he bit the inside of his mouth.
He's got blood on a backstage confrontation.
I hadn't even gotten out of the chair yet.
Ad Free Shows members got to sit shotgun alongside Kevin Nash and Click This co-host Sean Oliver as they watch back some of the worst matches in history. None more so than the Yeti.
Randy, now the mummy is not Frankenstein. You don't walk with your arms straight out
with the arms out, right? And a Yeti is also not a mummy, but I don't know. Was it Jim Herd? Who was here? Well, whose brainchild was this?
Who gives a fuck?
That's just a small taste of what we got waiting for you. With 4 levels to choose from, see for yourself why Ads Free Shows is the best value in wrestling today. Sign up now at adsfreeshows.com.